Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Being Human. I noticed in the news this last day or two that there is a bill in our legislature in New Hampshire, and people are trying to pass it, and it's for the legalization of marijuana for recreational use. And the real reason, a man came on and said, you know, we're losing a lot of money because we don't let people buy marijuana here. They're going out of state, they're buying their drugs out of state, they're bringing them back in, and we're not getting any money out of it. We're not getting any tax money out of it. We need to have people be able to buy their drugs in the state for the sake of getting taxes on them. Now, this was disturbing to me. There's not a word about how it affects your health, how old you should be before you take it, why you should take it at all. It's a whole thing of getting money for taxes, and I don't think that's right. And last year they tried to pass a similar bill, and it did not pass. And this year they're trying to pass the same kind of bill for the sake of getting tax money. Now, this is not the reason why anyone should be getting drugs or anything like that. And so this really bothered me. So at any rate, it may or may not pass. And if it doesn't, see, I'm not sure that people should have the right to use drugs recreationally. And the reason is what it does to the brain. And so I'm going into marijuana today. There's a lot of effects to the brain. There's a lot of effects to what happens to you if you take it. And what if a child takes it? You know, children are taking drugs at a younger and younger age. So what's going to happen if you have a child get an injury or do something to their brain, and their brain is not yet developed into adulthood? The same thing has come up with having children playing football. What if their head takes a hit in football and their brain has not yet grown? What does it do to the human brain to have an injury or to damage it through drugs or through an injury, and the brain has not yet developed to adult status? Remember, the brain does not develop to adult status until probably about 25 years old. So if you have a teenager taking drugs, it's a good 10 years before their brain is capable of being an adult brain. But what if it happens to a 9-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old? They're taking a drug. What happens to it then? What happens to a brain that's injured, that's not a mature brain? It's bad enough if you have a mature brain to have a brain injury, but what about a growing brain? What does it do to them? So I decided to do something on marijuana today. We were getting to that point anyway. And marijuana comes from a cannabis plant. The flowers, the stems, and the leaves. And the main ingredient is tetrahydrocannabinol. That's the main ingredient in marijuana, also called THC. Most people use just THC. It's the most common used drug after alcohol. And hashish is more a potent form of marijuana. Now, the effects of it, and this is what, for all these people who are so anxious to get a drug bill passed, they need to, I'd like to get them all together and tell them what it actually does to the brain. And maybe they would think a little differently. The effects of marijuana on the human brain. It depresses the brain, depending upon how much that you take of it. The more that you take of it, the worse it gets. It lowers inhibition. It causes dependence and tolerance. It gives tachycardia. Now, tachycardia is a brain is a heart disorder where the heartbeat is not natural. And it decreases blood pressure. It gives more tar in the lungs than cigarettes do. It obstructs the airway. It contains carcinogens, so you can get cancer from it. And there are changes in memory and learning. Time and distance don't make a difference to it. They're impaired. And you have tremors. Tremors are rigid muscle. Tremors are the shaking. This is a thing that it does when you take marijuana. Now, the more you take, the more pronounced the symptoms. So what do? If you have all of those symptoms, is it safe to drive? I don't think so. Is it safe to be around people? I don't think so. There's just changes in the way that the brain functions. Now, it is, I have to agree, not a hard drug. It's not like opium. It's not like heroin. It's not a hard drug. But the point is, if you have a psychological addiction to marijuana, which is pretty easy to get, then you have the same symptoms as if it were a physical addiction. You can have physical addiction, you can have emotional addiction. Sometimes you can have both. An emotional addiction would be easy to get with marijuana because it's not a hard addiction, but when you get used to it, and it's important for you to take it, some of the symptoms of an emotional attachment to the drug is the same as if it were a physical addiction to the drug, and it's very hard to get out of. It's very hard to get off from. I know I've talked with people who have been taking marijuana, and I've tried to tell them, what you're going through is for the brain. It's a change in your brain. You will get out of it when you get out of this drug state. But that you see, it causes all kinds of problems. It does all of that, obstructing airways and getting you addicted, emotionally addicted. If you are emotionally addicted, it's just as hard to get off an emotional addiction as it is to get off a physical addiction. Now, there are other drugs called opioids. Opioids are generally synthetic drugs, and a lot of them are based for pain control, and a lot of them are created in a lab. So these are lab-created drugs. They're synthetic, made in a lab, but they can be 1,000 times stronger than morphine or fentanyl. Now, fentanyl is a wonderful drug if used in an operating room, and I'm going to get to that next. Fentanyl controls pain, makes you a little sleepy. I know in my last heart attack, sitting in the ambulance, going to the hospital, and I was having a lot of pain from my chest, a lot of pain because I have heart disease, and they gave me fentanyl. Fentanyl, I felt better with it almost immediately because it takes pain away. But it also makes you a little sleepy. I can understand why anyone who has difficulty or pain would want to take fentanyl because it does do those things. It makes them sleepy and it takes pain away. But the problem is that's also not good for your health. You need to get a kind of structure. You need to get medical attention so you don't have to take the drug every time you have pain. But at any rate, I took it, and I could understand because I felt so much better why anyone would want to take it and why they could easily become addicted to it. Now, sometimes it kills. If you have a strong dose of the synthetic drug, one pill a day can kill you. I mean, it is very, very, very strong. If you get the wrong dosage and you're going to medicate yourself with fentanyl, you're really putting yourself in a death trap because it is very easy to get addicted to. And if you get enough of it, you'll just simply die. You'll just simply stop breathing and you will die. And it kills about 4 people a day just because they don't know how to use it. If you're in an operating room, they will use fentanyl a lot. Like say you're having cataracts removed from your eyes, you're kind of awake, but you're not completely awake. You don't feel anything, but you are conscious enough so that you can even talk to the doctor. And the doctor can talk to you. How do you feel now? What's going on now? And I know when I had my cataracts removed, I said to the doctor, I can feel this. Well, I wasn't feeling pain, but I was feeling pressure. As he was digging out the cataract, he said, this one is huge. And so I knew why I was feeling pressure as they were taking it out. But I was conscious of what they were saying. And I could talk to them if I had to. And I made that comment, I feel this. And he said, well, this one's huge. So there's some conversation that you can use with fentanyl. It doesn't knock you completely out. So you can converse with a physician. But if you're using on your own, outside of a medical profession, or outside of a hospital room or an operating room, then you're in danger, because you don't know how much you're getting, and you don't know if it's going to be too much. And if it's too much, it could kill you. One dose can kill you if you take fentanyl and it's the wrong doses. So it usually, for other kinds of drugs that are lab created, there's oxycodone, which makes you sleepy. And oxycodone is very bad on the stomach. People throw up with it. People have ulcers with it, but it is a painkiller. And so it is one of those opioid synthetic drugs, and it is effective in taking away pain. They gave it to me after foot surgery, and I found I couldn't use it. It was making me so sick to my stomach. And eventually, all I did, if I had to have some, I took half a dose. I took half a dose and no more. These drugs are dangerous. You need to consider. Now, for the opioids, withdrawal is tough. I'm going to read this off. I don't like to just read off lists, but this is opioid, and these are the withdrawal symptoms. Excuse me while I take a drink here. These are the list. You can be hyperactive. You can be too alert. In other words, you're really very focused. There can be rapid breathing, agitation, fast heart rate, fever, crying, perspiration, runny nose, tremors, muscle twitching, hot and cold flashes, aching muscles, cramps, and diarrhea. These are all of the symptoms that you can get as you are withdrawing from an opioid drug. And that's assuming that you didn't take enough to kill you. Now, you may not have all of these symptoms, but you can have quite a few of these symptoms, and they are long. It starts, the withdrawal starts 4 to 6 hours after your last dosage. So about 4 to 6 hours that withdrawal will begin, and it peaks in about 36 to 72 hours, and then it fades away. As I said the last time that I did one of these shows, there's a certain amount of time that it takes between your last dosage and the beginning of withdrawal symptoms. And then there's a certain amount of time when the withdrawal comes and then it ends. And that depends partly upon how the person reacts to the drug, and it depends upon how much they have taken of the drug. It's just not safe. It's just not worth it. So I would like to take all these legislators who think they're going to make so much money by letting people buy their drugs in the state. What are they going to do about all of the things that happen to a person if they get too much? Do they bear any responsibility? Is there anything they can say you can't take a drug until you're 14 or 15? Well, when you're 14 and 15, your brain is rewiring. You know, when you get to be a teenager, 12 and 13 years old, your brain starts to rewire. And when it starts to rewire, nothing quite works right. It's like you've got something going on, and the whole electric nature of the brain, and it does have an electric nature, has changed. You know, you have the axons, you have the dendrites, and you have all of the things that are going on within the structure of the brain, within the cells of the brain, and that changes. And if you take something to disrupt that, then you're going to do damage to the brain. Eventually, it's going to catch up with you. So that happened. I just didn't want to mention that in terms of the opioid drugs. Now, you do have sedatives that cause addiction. You can have withdrawal symptoms from that. But I see that we're getting kind of low on time, so I think next time I come in, I'm going to talk about the sedatives, the use of them, and what happens if you use them too much, and the withdrawal symptoms from the sedatives, and I will go on from there. So we'll close it for now. Thank you for watching. Please join me next time.